Okay, hi all again. This is Annie and Mandy here with you again. We are doing
Again,
a little bit more of these videos so you can enjoy our sharing. So again, if you are new to my channel, this is super channel for all the caffeine quitters and all the other addicts too. And today in this video, we're gonna share a little bit interesting stuff about anxiety that Mandy has figured out. So we can just
well, my theory. I don't know.
Mandy's theory about anxiety.
I mean, it's something that I feel like I have figured out, as I keep progressing. It's just a kind of a little theory. I have no idea if other people kind of would agree but it's okay. It's what I have experienced, what I kind of think is the way it was for me in addiction with my light to moderate anxiety. And then because I've been saying this last year, the symptoms that I have been experiencing are very similar to the way it was for me in addiction, but different because I'm not on a drug anymore.
Yeah.
But so yesterday, I told in the last video, I talked about how I went to Galveston, but as I was driving to Galveston, I was just having like a little, and I do this like kind of like almost like I'm making a video or a vlog, but I'm not recording myself. So I'm not like actually talking to myself, but I'm just speaking of like I'm reflecting, but I'm saying it out loud. And I don't know if that's normal. But here's the thing, like again, what we were talking about before, so many things that we think are normal, maybe they're not. Maybe they're like a light form of an intrusive thought, like we were saying,
Mm-hmm.
but we think it's normal. And even if that's what we were doing in addiction, and when we had a meaning we had it, if we had anxiety, thinking that that's normal, when really one day when we're more recovered, we're going to realize, wow, that wasn't normal. Like that was just that was like we were talking about before, that was just a behavior, a pattern.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving down there, and sometimes I listen to music. I can listen to music more and more in the beginning of it. Like, of course, in addiction, I could listen to music because I was more functional. I could listen to loud music. But in the beginning of this and at certain times of this process, I couldn't even listen to music because it was distorted, it was too stimulating, it was too loud, it was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to think. It's like I think it's part of that survival fight or flight to think. I think it helps us feel safe if we're just constantly like thinking about stuff and reflecting about stuff. It's like it really is a part of that survival instinct when we're in fight or flight for some of us.
Yeah.
For me, I noticed that. And this is just stuff that I'm noticing. And again, in addiction, if I did this, I always thought, because I always had the idea of like wanting to have my own YouTube channel. So I would do the talking just to like practice or whatever. Like I was interviewing somebody or speaking with someone, telling my story or whatever. But I also do think that it helped me to do the talking because that's how some people shut down when they're in fight,
Mm-hmm.
flight. Like I wasn't in, I guess maybe, and I like that term functional freeze. Like I think I was in functional flight because I was like always needing to talk,
Yeah.
always needing to share. And one thing Cato was telling me, he's like, people with anxiety, he's like, I can always tell, like most people with anxiety, they're so detailed with everything. Like you have to share every single little
Yes. Yeah.
detail,
Yeah.
like the
I was
conversation, like
bad
when
in
I,
addiction. I always felt bad if I couldn't share my intrusive thoughts. I did have to share my intrusive thoughts some reason for
yeah,
somebody.
yeah. Cause I mean, it makes it, and
Really.
again, and when we were doing it, we didn't know that it was a fight or flight. We didn't know it was about survival. And now what I just love when I'm working these last kinks out is that I'm really understanding that it was really all about feeling safe. And like that was our way to share because we didn't want to keep it to ourselves. Some people are in freeze, like they want to keep it to
Yeah.
themselves. They don't want to share.
Or
And
they
that's normal
can't, or
too.
they can't. They are just like in that maybe catatonic or more like that state that they just feel
Exactly.
like it's depending the nervous system. Like that's also
Exactly.
individual. Like some people go in more like you said in that fun state and they need to like act outspeak, but some people go straight to the freeze.
Yeah.
So it depending.
Yeah. And there are different stress. Yeah, it's the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flock. I even heard of one
Yeah,
time
yeah.
flock. So it is. It just depends on where you and I do think it has something to do with childhood. I do think it has something to do with the way, maybe a little bit of our personality. But again, those behaviors mixed with some childhood stuff, why we are all different. So it like is all the same because it's the nervous system, but we all kind of act, we all have a different response depending, yeah, on those different variables. So very, very cool. I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm driving, I'm thinking, and it just pops in my head. So I'm like driving and I look over and then I look back. But as I look over, it happens very quickly. I look at this girl. She's driving kind of like maybe like a 99, like a very old car. Her hair's kind of stringy. Um, but I feel like I'm scanning her because I'm doing like that's where I'm at right now. Like I scan things, even though I'm more functional, like I'm always like scanning and like assessing
Yeah.
my environment. But I think that that's what it is. We're assessing our environment. We're not. So I was starting to think of like, because even in addiction, I felt like I was very judgy and like, is it my ego? Am I judging people? And then I started thinking, I was like, it wasn't. It was really about, it's all about survival. Like everything, whenever I have a question about anything, I can always take it back to like our primal days and survival, anything.
Yeah.
And it always makes sense to me why we do the things we do when we're questioning, like, why are we this way? Why do we do that? Why do we like to be around good looking, strong people? Because it's all about survival. So
Yes, yes, yes,
it's
yes.
just interesting to me. So it's like, you're not judgy. That's how like society makes us think like, oh, we're bad. You're being bad. You're judging somebody. So what I started thinking about was when we have anxiety and when we've been, and again, this is something that I just thought of yesterday. So if I don't articulate it perfectly, like I'm just kind of
Don't
talking it
worry.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just wanted to share it,
yes.
and do it the best I can. So, and
Mhm.
I just think it's interesting. So as I'm looking at her, it just hit me that like you're not being judgy for somebody that has any type of anxiety. So if you have panic, you're not even, again, like I said in that last video, you don't even have the capacity to, you're just trying to survive
Yeah.
a deep level of survival.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have the mild and moderate, it's like a more petty type of survival. It's like
Yeah.
almost like it does matter, but it's like it's not as like essential. It's almost like your body's more calm, so it's not that important, but you're still kind of on that spectrum of like a light bit of fight or flight. Like your nervous system's still a little bit.
Yeah, a little
So
bit
we have,
making sure that you are in safe, a little bit making the sure that
yeah,
it's okay. Okay, like
it's okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And so like, and again, if this was part of your behavior for 30, 35 years, and you just think it's part of you, but it was because we were on caffeine and had mild and moderate anxiety. And so for me, like, I'm like, why do I looky-loo at people? And then that's when, again, like I said in the last video, that's when I always thought people were looky-looing at me and judging me because I was doing it. But I'm starting to think it really isn't judging. But well, it
Mhm.
is but we're judging all about survival to keep us
Yeah.
safe. It's a form of judgment because of survival. So I came up
Yes.
with so I'm looking at her and I am thinking she's weak, because she doesn't have, and this is just again for society
Mhm.
ways. And I'm not like necessarily thinking she's weak, but I think that like the judgment comes from, okay, if she doesn't have the nice car, or she's looking kind of with her hair, maybe she's depressed because she didn't brush her hair. Like I think like all these things we're scanning and we think we're being judgmental, but when it comes to primal days and feeling safe and feeling like okay, for example, I wouldn't want her to be part of my tribe
Mm-hmm.
only because like I wanted to invite her into my tribe if she wasn't like a family member. And this is all like hypothetical. This is just
Yeah.
like making it all up as I go. But it's not that I don't like her or I don't want her, she's a bad person. It's the fact that like if somebody's weak, then they are the weak link to where if a tiger was chasing us, then that person wouldn't help me survive.
Yeah. Yes.
But yet, when we think of like the way things are with modern times, with cars and like money, so if somebody has a lot of money, they're probably got it together, they're smart, they're going to help you survive.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started thinking a little further and I said, well, sometimes I get kind of jealous of people that are pretty or they're they're rich or they have the nice car. I look
Mm.
at them and I'm like, oh, okay, well they have, so I started thinking even further that I want the weaker link to be in my tribe, but then I also, because of the anxiety, I know that I don't fit into the category of the really well-to-do person. And so that it feels like a threat. So it feels like a threat when I look at somebody that's weak, and it's so for when people have anxiety, and then it feels like a threat for somebody who has the means that I don't have, the looks, the material things, because I don't fit in their tribe. So I was like, wow, like, so all this time I've been thinking that I'm like insecure and it is a form of insecurity when I look at the rich person or the person with all the means and I'm jealous because I'm not strong enough to, like, if they were to look at, then I'm thinking that they're looking at me like, okay, for example, when I was practicing massage therapy and I had people come into my home and I had a lot of well-to-do clients and they would drive up in their Range Rover, and they're wearing like really nice expensive athletic clothing. They just look together. They look like their skin looks good. And I would kind of think like, oh, do they think that I'm, not as good as them? And I really do think it's because I didn't feel good. I was, drinking and consuming a lot of caffeine. I was eating too much food. I was overweight. I was judging myself only because I knew that they could possibly be judging me like I wouldn't be strong enough to fit in their tribe. So, and again, we still have these instinctual ways of survival, but yet we have these totally different modern time. We
Yeah.
have all these different modern, um, what's the word? We're just different, or we navigate through life differently now.
Yeah, we are
So,
animals, but we just live in a different kind of society, but it doesn't mean that there are those biological laws inside of us that are like
yes,
working, and
biological laws.
it plays out in the different way that we humans would want to think it does. But when, like
It's
you
the
said it
same.
that way, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Everything has a
It was
reason.
just like, yeah, everything has a reason and you can go back. Cause like, I love that biological laws. That's really good.
That comes from the German New Medicine, if somebody is
Okay.
interested
I
about
like,
that. German
I
New
like that.
Medicine. So
I love that. Yeah. Cause like, if we were back in primal days and we all had our hut and we all had our fire and the husbands or the men went to, I don't even know if they were husbands back then, but the men went to, hunt, and then the women were at home taking care of everything, and you didn't have the jewelry and you didn't go to the salon and get your nails done and your hair done, and you didn't have the designer outfits, and you didn't pull up in your Mercedes or your
yeah,
Range Rover.
no, no.
But the strength there, the muscles and the strength and the protection, that's who you wanted to be around. And
Yeah,
so I think that so in our society now, we look at people with money as strength, or, somebody that, even if they don't have money, but somebody that just takes care of themselves, goes to the gym, has that build, you
yeah,
respect or look up to somebody like that. So then I took it a step further because I've been told, and I start to see it in myself, that we start to build that self-confidence now that it's not just about the whole rewiring with the brain and what's going on the inside, but when we get off the drugs, we start to rewire, we start to work properly, we start to, naturally just want to eat better.
Mm-hmm.
So we start to get this strength. We start to look at our face changes, like everything, our hair, our skin, our nails, we're not sweating as much. Like all these things, we just start to look the part.
Yeah.
And if we're feeling good, we have the energy, we start to work, because that's what we do now in society now is we work, we make money, we start to drive the nicer car, we have the nicer house. All these things just start to, the way that we were always supposed to be, we start to get that self-confidence, that self-love. We're not caring as much of what other people are thinking, because now we are that strength in that tribe. Now we start to invite people into our tribe and only let people in who give that value.
Mm.
We don't want to be, we're not looking up to the rich person anymore and thinking like, oh, because we're not, like, I feel like when the anxiety goes down and we do have all these attributes now, that first of all, we're not in our mind anymore, and we're not judging. We're not needing to judge. If somebody looks weak or they don't have the means, we're not judging it anymore because it's not a threat. And if
No.
somebody is rich and looks like they got it all together, we're not judging them anymore because they're not a threat. It was all about like a threat. If we're
Yeah.
like where we are in our own, and so that's where I was. So that's how I judged it. And I was,
Mm.
I was observing that, like those thoughts. And that's to me, for me, and like where I'm at in my life, why I had those thoughts and like how it's all playing out now. And so I just get the fact of I don't I don't want I only want certain people around me that are like me. Like the lady that I talked to yesterday, she was great, but deep down, because she had 4 glasses of wine, and I'm not judging her, but I
Yeah.
don't want, she wanted to like hang out. We did get each other's numbers and stuff, but I'm starting to think like, is that really somebody I want in my tribe? Like, because I
Yeah.
don't really, and maybe I can handle somebody drinking eventually, but like where I'm at right now, I don't think, because she changed. I could see the
Yeah.
change.
Yes.
And so I think when people do have even light or mild anxiety or moderate, we still feel a little bit of insecurity. We still feel a little bit of that judgy because we're not quite yet there. And when the anxiety
Mm.
completely goes away over all those years, we're starting to have that strength. We're starting to look the part. And then over time we start working, making the money. Yeah, we're our own strength now. We don't, yeah, I think it's just so cool.
Yeah, so cool. Thank you for sharing because it makes so much sense and it brings understanding to all the behaviors that we have and all the behaviors that our parents have had. Maybe even
Mm,
they didn't know to be always the best parents. Like in my own family, I have been doing a lot of like forgiveness work and like
mm,
the understanding with my childhood stuff, but it all makes sense. Like I think the best reward also in this journey when you become stronger and healthier and you're just be happy and in the present, you actually can be more empathic with all the people and that
yeah.
that will play out now. It can be like we have the little bit of judgment still about the stuff and we
Hmm.
want to fix people. Some people who are even in our family, we would like them to change. We would like so much because they are important to us. And if they don't change, we feel that we failed or something. But some point we don't feel that anymore because we can just feel empathic with
Yeah.
everyone. And because we did our own
Mm.
work.
Yeah, we're not feeling threatened anymore. It's
Yeah.
nothing's a threat when the anxiety is no
Yeah.
longer a factor. Yeah, it was never really the judgment. It was all threat. It was all protection, survival. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
safety.
so
Safety
interesting.
comes first, and that's why in addiction recovery, like now when we have this knowledge, we help people. We don't say people just go cold turkey. It doesn't matter unless you're just quit caffeine. That's the most important. No, it just depends on the person what is the best for your safety to do, and we always want to
Yeah.
support your safety and not push your over the limits, because that's not
Yes.
gonna help anyone. At least like for some people, yeah, this needs to happen like for us, but not everyone, not for
Not
every
every,
case.
yeah. And it's just like the brain hates change, but maybe if you're not dependent on the drug, it doesn't feel like it's a change.
Mm-hmm.
So if you quit cold turkey and you were truly, truly dependent, and some people are, some people aren't for whatever reasons, and
Yeah.
then you quit cold turkey, the brain's like, no, 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 it's changed. It thinks it needs it. We always say that, it thinks it needs it to survive. It's already adapted in that state. And then you quit cold turkey and it just feels stressed. It's like high, high, high stress. And then it gets that high, high panic anxiety because it's like, no, 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 we need this. But then it goes back to homeostasis and then everything's great. But that whole process has to play out for some of us. And but yeah, I just think it's so interesting because like once we're anxiety free, we I guess we can scan people and look and see that, yeah, okay, that person's that way, that person's that way, but there's no more like judgment because you're not threatened. It's just so interesting to me.
Yeah.
I love it. I
And
really love it.
we don't even, like, I can see it myself, like even some of my lives, like I get very triggered about speaking caffeine addiction, because that's my thing, that's my pill to swallow. I
Mm,
did fall off the mountain, but for example, speaking about porn addiction doesn't, I can speak for that, like hours, it doesn't do anything because I don't have experience for that. I don't have
yeah,
any, I cannot relate that, but I can relate that it's in every addiction. You do suffer, and you have your own stuff when you recover, and that is important to us, that we can relate now, and people can
yeah,
relate to our experience. But when you have something that did like touch you and put you out of your comfort zone, and you went to the fight or flight, that's gonna take a while before you get that relaxed place. I think I'm starting to be there now. Like, it just was an
me too.
experience of pause, 4 year pause, and now I'm just
Yeah,
cool and relaxed to speak about that. But it wasn't that like in my 3 years, like in my big wave, like you probably remember if you watched those videos, that I was like pissed off to still experiencing stuff,
yeah.
not
It gets
happy at
annoying.
all, high fight
It's
or flight.
frustrating. It's super frustrating because, yeah, it's just like, what is this? And maybe if there was a manual and it had step by step and everybody's manual, we just got it in the mail and it's like, okay, this is your manual for your specific DNA and all your variables,
Yes.
and here you go. And this is how you're going to experience it. Would that have helped us more, even though we had to experience the symptoms and go through the days? Like, would that have helped to know that, like, this is normal and this could take X amount of time? Or would we have been pissed off? Would we have been mad that, like, because I was told this takes 4 or 5 years in my first
Yeah,
year. This
me
one
too,
girl told
me
me
too. Me
4 years.
too, but they didn't want to hear it.
I was like, not me. It's not going to take me that long. Maybe for you or maybe for some people, but not me. I eat healthy. I
Yeah,
drink nothing but water.
same.
I'm going to heal faster. Like, I just couldn't even, I was told, and not by a lot of people, but it was told to me. It was, it
Mm.
was,
Yeah,
it
we
was
got the
acknowledged.
information pretty early on, like we really did. Um,
Yeah.
but we
And
didn't have the information about how it's gonna like plays out.
right. No, we didn't have that. That just kind of all naturally played out as it happened. And yeah, very normal. And I just see it like in other, if we watch other, drug withdrawals, and like some benzos are very similar because of the anxiety, even though their
Mm-hmm.
symptoms are different because the benzos play on the different neurotransmitter, GABA, and
Yeah.
caffeine's dopamine and all that. But
Yeah.
it's all like we're all saying the same things in a way. And like we all have, you see people having this tsunami wave when they take a antibiotic. A lot of people say they get that because of the antibiotic and it's a setback. And it's like, I don't know. I just think that the body's going to have that wave anyway. And yes, maybe certain things do push it to happen. I don't know, but they just happen. I know that they happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they're putting it together that it is a tsunami wave that was just going to happen anyway, that like no one really did something to make it happen.
Yeah.
It was just like, even with supplements, antibiotics, did it trigger it to happen? No, I think it was just going to happen. I don't know. It's very tricky, but it happens with so
Yeah.
many. Like, it really is part of the process. And so let's say this is 4 or 5 years, you're going to go through that no matter what, and it's still just going to take you 5 years. So
Yeah, I do
for
think
some,
that some
for
people it
some,
can have a lot. I do think that people can have reaction for supplements
reaction.
because I have
Yeah,
had like I believe that, and I do believe that in antibiotics you can have, because they are a poison to your body, so your body will start to get rid of those, and it interrupts your like the root process when you take something, but that doesn't happen for everybody for some
for
reason.
everybody.
But
Yeah,
that's why I wouldn't recommend. Why would you want to take something like that if you don't have to?
exactly.
Like, why? Like, that's why I always say don't take anything to interrupt, because it's like we know
Yeah,
that not everybody gonna fall off the mountain with caffeine, but we don't still recommend that, okay, you are not gonna fall off
exactly.
the mountain. But same with the supplements and meds, like you don't know what's gonna
Exactly.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it just triggers it, or yeah. Why? And we have a video about supplements and quick fix that they're like, it's such a scam. It's such a marketing scheme scam. Like, why take it when it really is not working anyway? Especially if you have anxiety, you're not absorbing the supplements. You're not absorbing the food really, but you're supposed to be getting your nutrients from food.
Yes.
So what's the point of taking the supplement anyway? And then to know that it could trigger or cause a reaction for a lot of people, like, why chance that? So we don't need it anyway. And then why put it in your body when it could cause a flare up it's very tricky. But I do, again, still, I think that I just like how we talked about person A, person B, and how their timeline is 5 or 6 years, 4 or 5, 6 years, whatever, to completion. But person A with the less stress, it doesn't take supplements, it doesn't have flare ups, whatever,
Mm.
are they going to have? They could have better days, but are they still going to have a tsunami wave? But because their stress is lower, their experience is going to be maybe a little bit more subtle. And then person B with the 6 kids and the stress and they had a supplement reaction, all this and that, their experience throughout the journey is just going to seem more extreme, be more extreme possibly, but still both people A and B are still going to recover. It's just,
Yeah, it
at
just
the
can
end of the
take a lot
day,
of more time, like not even more time, but its intensity can be just more
right,
higher. Intensity
right.
can
Like
be higher all the time.
yeah, like the time frame is the same essentially, but the process can be more extreme depending on those variables.
And one thing that I want to do share before I go about the kindling, that I was like researching, that the kindling is
Mm,
the term that if you quit and go back to the drug, so you relapse and go back and you do that many times, so you will like make those neurons in the brain more sensitive, and that is not good for the brain. Like, that's why it can be that for some reason, if you end up taking some drugs or something, your neurons are already so sensitive, so you gotta get hell of a reaction. And there can be also many toxins about the supplements, and I do another video about that too, about toxic supplements. But like about the kindling, that's why I always want to try to use that, not to do relapses. Even the relapse can happen, that's okay, but not to go that back and forth brain, because what I have heard,
yeah.
people who have been quitting many times, they say that it's always harder to,
Mhm.
like, if you like go back to addiction, and if you really do relapse. And I don't now mean the relapse that you accidentally take a little bit uh, caffeine in some form accidentally, that but
Right.
if you really like you go back, then you quit,
Back and
you
forth.
go back, that is very hard for the brain.
Yeah, I saw it in the group, in the quitting caffeine group, before, where people were saying that they quit, then they went back, they quit for a month or two. It wasn't too bad, but their brain
Yeah.
missed the drug, obviously. They went back, and they relapsed, and then they consumed it for like another year, started having, they knew they needed to get off of it and then get off of it again. And then they were saying how in that they're like, this quit's way worse. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kindling. That's common. And I quit alcohol. Like, it's just so interesting to me. Like, I know, and I had a problem with alcohol, but I don't talk about it as much as I talk about caffeine, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, because that's what I fell off the mountain with. I know it,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
that's what raped me. That's what abused me. So I talk about that more so, like you were saying, but I did have a problem with alcohol, but I could quit alcohol on and off. I could just stop and start and stop and start and stop and start and
Mm-hmm.
do cleanses and all that. And it wasn't, and I think I would have some anxiety from it, but I also, I think I could, when I would quit, I could feel like the caffeine because I wasn't medicating with the alcohol anymore. So the caffeine was really, really, present, the anxiety from the caffeine, because that's what I would drink alcohol for, was to mask the anxiety from the caffeine. So when I didn't have that mask with alcohol, the caffeine was like, the anxiety from the caffeine was really present.
Yeah.
But so I think that's a thing. But anyway, I would like go back and forth because I was always on the caffeine. That's why I would always keep going back to the alcohol. But it wasn't until I quit the caffeine that's when I was dependent on the caffeine, because that's when I really just, and I was kindling with the caffeine because I was going back and forth with it for a while,
Yeah.
and I started to have the panic attacks. So it's just so interesting about that. True, like, is it like, why do we get not just addicted but dependent?
Yeah,
You
because
know, and
I know
it's
I didn't have ever any other like addiction problem. It was always the caffeine, and I know
yeah,
since the childhood that was my type of like that hit me hard. Like I'm sure that
yeah,
I was adapted to caffeine like really young age because I was never cared about like weed so much. Cigarettes only in my 20s when I did drink. Sometimes I smoke when I did drink, and alcohol it was easy to leave, but with caffeine not easy, and it was like even horrible, like even think
yeah.
about it, like how unaware you can be. Like with other substances you are not unaware. With alcohol you somehow you are aware.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
cigarettes you are aware, you are like this is bad, you're smoke it you shouldn't smoke. With caffeine, yeah, I love it, and you can even think that this is healthy for you. Like people even think that
Hmm.
caffeine is healthy for them. That's like
Exactly. It's not. But yeah, it's like, it's so funny because like people saw me, they didn't think my caffeine addiction was bad, but they saw me drinking and getting drunk. But I was really just, I did not have a problem. I had a problem with alcohol only because I was on caffeine. I cut out the caffeine and I haven't had even a thought of wanting to drink alcohol in almost 4 years. Same with sugar. Like, yes, I eat
yeah,
fruit, but I just haven't had a cookie, cake, ice cream, donut, nothing.
yeah,
And I won't. I don't know if I ever will. I don't know. I might have a bite and be like, bleh.
yeah.
But because I did have something the other day, I know that it wasn't like a sweet, but it was like a bready type thing. And I had a bite of it and it was so sweet. It almost like was like acid on my mouth. It was really gross.
Yeah, you don't even
Um,
want that anymore. Like you just are so
I
happy
spit it
with a
out.
healthy diet. Like why
Yeah.
to eat?
And I think that's another whole thing with mild anxiety. I think when we have that, that's kind of like a survival thing, to like think that we have to get all these calories and like eat a bunch of crap, when like
Mm.
now I'm getting to the point, because my anxiety's, even the mild, is getting better. When I was at the beach yesterday, I got a shrimp salad. I always want fried shrimp when I go to the beach. Like, I want fried shrimp and I want to like treat myself. And I was craving like a very fresh, cold, vegetable-y, and the shrimp. I was craving healthy. Like, it's getting, because my anxiety is getting lower. It's so
Yes.
interesting.
And you can then when the anxiety goes down, you can actually benefit the healthy diets and you can benefit all the things
Yeah.
that you have been doing before, like what did help. Because like I will say that before we quit, that many people, you are saying to me always that Anni, my coping skills doesn't help that I do before. I do breathings, I do cold showers, I do whatever diet doesn't help. It doesn't help until your anxiety goes down. But
Right.
then you can get even more from the exercise and even more from the
Yes.
diet, like when you do
Exactly.
breathe. And those are the
Exactly. Like,
healthy
now I
things
can take,
that you want to do.
yeah, now I can take a deep breath and it just relaxes me. In the beginning of this, why can't I take my deep breath like I could before? Why can't I go for walks? Why can't I? And now all that is so nice and like it works. It like calms me when I take the deep breath. When before, because it's just the time. It really is the time.
Yes, so cool. Thank
So
you,
good.
Mandy. This was
Thank you. This has been fun. This has been a fun day making these 3 videos.
yes, and we'll see you all again. So
Yes.
bye
We
bye.
all heal.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Yeah.